We are so fortunate to have with us today Amy Marentic, who is the Ford Group Marketing Manager. And before I tell you a little bit about Amy, I just love what Ford is doing. They're really taking such a forward step in recognizing that women are 80% of the direct purchasers or influencers of car purchases. And I told her in WITI, we're 100%, because are we going to let someone tell us what kind of car to buy? No way. So they were smart enough, even though that statistic has been around for many years ago, they are the only actually car company that I know of who's so gutted about women that they actually not just hired women in the showrooms, but they're hiring women who are designing the cars, finally. Having a woman that designs cars we buy, for me, is fabulous. So that said, Amy trained as an aerospace engineer. She actually wanted to be an astronaut. During her senior year at the University of Michigan, she realized that an automotive career could provide years of exhilaration, I like that word, compared with a brief ride in space she might never achieve. She holds both a bachelor's degree in aerospace engineering and a master's degree in industrial and manufacturing engineering. And before joining Ford in 1992, Amy worked as a product design engineer for Prince Corporation, a top-tier automotive industry supplier. Amy's wide-ranging automotive industry portfolio has encompassed engineering, product planning, business strategy development, and regional field sales management roles. That's great, Amy. Really nice background. So a few personal highlights about Amy. She grew up in Western Michigan. Amy's first car was a 1977 Mustang. During college, she aspired to be an astronaut. She's married with 3 active children. That's a good word. And Amy was a contributing author on the 2007 book, Boom, Marketing to the Ultimate Power Consumer, the Baby Boomer Woman. With that, please welcome Amy Marentic.
That was lovely. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Amy.
I'm going to set down my nail polish. Thank you very much.
Good idea, thanks.
Good morning, everyone. I want to start by giving you a gift, and I hope I have enough for everybody. As Carolyn said, we're spending much more time focusing on women at Ford. And this year, we do auto shows every year, and it really is a bit of a coming out party for us. Auto show is an opportunity for us to show what's new and what's fresh in the industry, and we spend a lot of time focusing on the cars that we're going to show and the messages that we're going to tell. So we were getting ready for the LA Auto Show last year, and we were very excited because we were showing the all-new Fiesta, the all-new Fiesta ST, and we were showing some other products there as well, some new Mustangs. And we always do little events. We want people to come and we want people to interact. And I remember saying to the men who run our auto show department, I said, I'd really like to partner with OPI nail polish, and I'd like to do nail polish that's the same color as the new Ford Fiesta. I think it will be really, really fun. And oh, by the way, I've already worked everything out with OPI. And they looked at me like I had 3 heads. And they said, you want to do what? I said, I want to give away nail polish at the auto show. No, nobody's going to be interested in nail polish, Amy. No. And what is this OP thing? I said, excuse me, it's OPI. And I will pay for it if you just promise me that you will do it. Okay, if you're paying for it, it's low risk. Well, so what we did is we have 3 colors, and we're going to give them all to you today. We have a Ford Fiesta Storm. It's a gray color. We have a Ford Fiesta Molten Orange. This is our exclusive color on our ST, which is our sports Fiesta. It's very fast, 200 horsepower. And then we also have my favorite is Blue Candy, Ford Fiesta Blue Candy. Now I will tell you, they have never seen lines at the LA Auto Show as long as the lines around the Ford Fiesta for the nail polish. Not only that, but I think I received more interviews, more TV time with people, specifically women, wanting to talk about the nail polish. It was a huge success. And we're continuing to work more with companies like OPI to become relevant to women like you. So I hope you enjoy the nail polish. And if you don't get the color that you loved, maybe you can do some trading, right? Somebody might be more gray, somebody else might be more blue. So enjoy. So I'd like to switch it up a little bit and start my presentation. And I'd like you all to imagine that you're in a conference room. You're in a conference room and you're at a horseshoe table. And above there's a projector with a presentation being projected. And at the top of the horseshoe is a very strong man. He happens to be the vice president of product development at the time. And around the horseshoe are all the people that are working on these two brand new programs that Ford hadn't yet brought to market. And this was back in 2000. I was one of those people sitting around the table. I had just moved from engineering into marketing, and I was the marketing manager on these two new vehicles that hadn't yet come to market. And the engineers were going through their presentations, and they recommended that we change a target. It was a fuel economy target. They said, boy, it's going to be really hard to deliver this, and we're going to need to change the target. And at the time, the vice president of product development said, I agree, I support. Well, Amy Marentic was sitting at the table, and I was, I don't know, 30 years old, maybe 32, my first marketing position. And what did I say? I said, well, you can't do that. We just took $1,000 of pricing, and the customer expects more. And the whole room went quiet. And I kind of cowered down in my seat a little bit, completely ignored my comment, and moved on to the next subject. I was feeling very powerful at that moment. Didn't hear anything else about it until about 3 hours later, when I got a call from my boss's boss's admin saying, could you please come to Bob's office? And I said, okay. I walked into Bob's office, very nervous, sat down, was doing everything to hold in my emotions. And when I feel like I'm going to cry, because there is no crying in business, somebody told me once to pinch the inside of your hand. So I am wildly pinching the inside of my hand, hoping that I am not going to get fired because I've made the vice president of product development very angry. And I sit down and Bob says to me, Amy, you're doing a great job. You're doing exactly what you should be doing. But the way you're doing it just isn't working. He said, don't be so bold. Be a little more charming. Don't be so brash. Don't be so focused. Be a little more chatty. And maybe be a little more cheerful. And I'm sitting in the chair and I'm thinking, for God's sake, you're telling me to be more chatty, more charming, more cheerful? I have gone to school for 9 years to learn to say it like it is, to learn right from wrong. And you're telling me to be more chatty, more charming, more cheerful. I was very confused. But I realized that it's probably the most powerful insight that I've gotten in my entire career. And I'll talk to you a little more about it later. And I don't want you to think that I'm saying, take a step back. What I'm actually saying is be more creative in how you get people to a place where you want them to be. My name is Amy. I work for Ford. I've worked for Ford for 22 years. I've done many different things at Ford. I've been very blessed to have an amazing career. But most importantly, I'm a wife, and I'm a mother of 3, and I also have a fabulous bulldog named Tucker. I'm showing you his puppy picture because it was so much cuter. Sometimes his picture now scares people. But he is absolutely adorable, and those are my husband's flip-flops, so you can see how tiny he was when he was a puppy. My husband, Jeff, he also works at Ford Motor Company. In fact, he just got a new job, and he now sits in my building in the same office 2 floors below me. And we now interface, and we're in so many meetings together, which is interesting. First time in our careers at Ford where we've been in a place where we interact on a daily basis. My daughter, Chloe, this is a picture of Chloe a couple years ago before she put dreadlocks in her hair. Chloe is the opposite of me. We couldn't be more different. I'm very business-oriented, I'm very focused, I'm very goal-oriented, and she is a free spirit and would like to just spend her summers traveling the country following bands. Nature versus nurture, right? My son, Nate, he is most like me. He is an engineer at the University of Michigan. He's studying, he is going to be a sophomore this year. He is very much like me. And then my son, Jack, he is 16, actually no, he's 17. He's a junior in high school, and he's an avid golfer, and we're just hoping that he will find what he loves in addition to golf, because golf is really, really his absolute first love. Oh, I should probably tell you. Went to University of Michigan. I'm an aerospace engineer, and now I run marketing for Ford. I'll explain that in a little bit. This is what I'm responsible for at Ford. I'm responsible for the vehicles that make up 60% of the marketplace. So if, Carolyn, you're going in to buy a vehicle, there's a 60% chance that you're going to buy a vehicle that's this size, either a mid-size car, a small car, a very small car, or a small utility. So that's 60% of the marketplace today. And in fact, with women, it's even higher. Women buy a lot of mid-sized cars, a lot of small cars, and a lot of sport utilities. These are the vehicles that I'm responsible for: the Ford Fusion, our C-Max, our Fiesta, our Escape, our Fusion Hybrid, our Fusion Energy, which is a plug-in hybrid, our Focus, our Fiesta, and our ST brand, which is our performance brand. So I sell, my vehicles, we sell almost 750,000 in the US every year, and I'm responsible for about $15 billion in revenue to Ford Motor Company. Now, the title of the slide says the 20-year career of a rocket scientist. Now, I was really only a rocket scientist when I was in college and I was at the bar. People would always ask me, so what are you studying? And I would say, I'm a rocket scientist. And I thought that was really a fun comment, and it was a comment that kind of put people back on their toes. They never believed it. What I've had the opportunity to do at Ford Motor Company is I look at Ford all the way from the most advanced engineering all the way to sales and a little bit in between. And that's really where my career has lived. It's lived between the most advanced engineering and all the way to sales. And I'll tell you just a little bit about it, because I think what's really important is, as a technical woman, you can do anything. If you don't have that technical career, it's difficult to move into an engineering position. But if you do, it's much easier to move into a position that is less technical, like sales or like marketing. And what you can do is you can bring your analytics to marketing, to sales. And that's one of the reasons I think I've been successful at Ford, is I've used analytics. I brought analytics to marketing before it was cool. It's very cool now. You go to MBA school, you're taught analytics. But back in the day, 15 years ago, it wasn't so cool. And it was something that allowed me to stand out. I started the company in aerodynamics. I actually worked on making our vehicles more fuel efficient by making them more streamlined. So my objective was delivering a coefficient of drag to the program. It was my job to tell the team how to design the vehicle to make sure that we hit our coefficient of drag target. And I'll never forget my first business trip. You guys probably all remember your first business trip. I almost missed my flight because I didn't know I was supposed to get there an hour and a half early. We were using Lockheed's wind tunnel in Marietta, Georgia. So I flew to Atlanta. We got to the wind tunnel. I walked in. People were introducing me. And I realized there was no women's bathroom because they had never had a woman at the wind tunnel. So the entire week I was there, people would always say to me, oh, you're the reason we can't use the bathroom on the second floor. Because they literally put a Post-it note on the bathroom saying, women's bathroom for the week. I did aerodynamics for a couple years at Ford. I enjoyed every minute of it. I loved being in the wind tunnels. I loved traveling around using different wind tunnels. And I loved the idea of making cars more fuel efficient and making them more environmentally friendly. I then went into engine cooling. I had a fleet of vehicles. I could barely change a tire. And now all of a sudden I owned 6 vehicles. They were mine, they were my children. I had to fix them, I had to jump them. If the battery was dead, I had to take care of them. I had to work on them. It was a whole new experience for me, but one that certainly helped me grow. I actually had an opportunity to tear down an engine and rebuild the engine, which was absolutely amazing. Then they said, Amy, you have to do process. If you want to move to the next level, you must do process. I hated process. I really hated everything about process, but I did it and I smiled. And then I moved into heat management. And heat management is really an amazing, there's so much heat that comes out of a vehicle. And managing that heat and managing it in a way that keeps that heat away from the consumer and keeps the product safe is an amazing assignment. And I did that actually for about 3 years. I really enjoyed that. Then I was getting my master's in engineering. I had completed that and I was getting my MBA and I said, boy, I really love business and I'd really like to try business. And I had the opportunity to move into global cycle planning. So I worked with a team that was responsible for developing our global cycle plan. It was $59 billion over a 10-year period. It was for Mazda, it was for Volvo, it was for Jaguar, it was for all of our brands. And it was setting the business plan for the next 10 years. An incredibly exciting opportunity. And that really gave me the ability to see more of the business side at Ford. And that's when I moved into marketing. So I had, when I was in the global cycle plan job, I had a real opportunity to interface with a lot of the senior team. And I made a good impression. And one day I got a call. They said, Amy, we would like you to be the marketing manager for the Ford Transit. And I said, well, I really don't know anything about commercial vehicles. And the Transit was only sold outside of the US. So it was sold in 60 countries outside of the US, mostly in Europe. I said, I really don't know anything about Europe. And the only thing I know about marketing is what I've learned in MBA school. And they said, I know you'll be perfect. And I was scared to death. But I loved it. I learned so much. I traveled in Europe. I was in Romania. I was in Turkey. I was in Turkey the day before the major earthquake. I got out just before the major earthquake. And, you know, Carolyn, you were talking about wearing your hat and doing something different. Well, that was really something different for me. And oftentimes what you'll find in your career is the time when you stretch the most is the time when you learn and you grow the most. And that, I think, in my career was really the time that I grew the most. Then I went into tourist marketing. Then I was asked to run a third of our company from a sales perspective. And again, I had never been in sales. And I said, boy, are you sure? And they said, yes, Amy, you really need this experience. So the first day I went in, and clearly my boss had not chosen me. I had been chosen for him. And I sit down, and he looks across the table, and he says to me, so, do you have any idea what we do in the field? And I said, well, in my last job, I've been to all the different regional areas. My husband grew up in the field, so I talked to him a lot about it. So, you know, I haven't done it, but I know a lot about what we do in the field. And then he looked at me and he said, I hear you won't relocate. And I said, no, I'm happy to relocate. I just hadn't been asked to relocate. So I'm thinking, boy, this is not starting out well. And I looked him right in the eye and I said, Don, I said, I am here to learn. I will take any crappy assignment you want to give me. You want to give me Sarbanes-Oxley, you want to give me budget, just give me whatever nobody else wants because I am here to learn. And at the end of the day, we ended up having an amazing relationship. And I did. I took all the bad assignments, but then I also earned some of the great assignments. And I learned by osmosis. But I was so excited when I got the call that said, Amy, we want you to come run product marketing and planning, and we want you to develop the new Explorer, and the new Taurus, and the new Mustang. And I said, really? Okay, bye sales. I was never really born to sell. It's just not what's in me. I was born to make things. I was born to market things, but I don't think that I was born to sell things. So then I moved, I did that. I did product planning, and now I'm in the job that I'm in today, where I run our marketing for all of our global cars and crossover. It's been 22 years. It's been a fabulous career, and it's been a career where I made a switch, probably in the heat management time frame, where instead of doing what everybody told me to do, I started doing what I wanted to do and what I loved to do. And that really changed my career. Now, as Carolyn mentioned, Ford employs a lot of women, more than you could even imagine. In fact, the majority of my team is all women. We have women that are running the F-150 program. The F-150 is our truck. We sold 70,000 of them this past month, and it's run by a woman. She's a woman with 2 little twin girls that play hockey. And how many people would imagine that when they think of the big Ford truck, that it's actually being run by a woman? She's actually a breast cancer survivor as well. She's amazing. We also have women that are running all of our technology development, and I think a lot of people would be surprised. About 7, 8 years ago, when we decided we wanted to become not just a car company, but a technology company, we had 2 women. They were job sharing, Pam Wiley, Lois Miller, and they put a process in place to develop technology quicker and to expand it across our vehicle lines faster. So the way it used to work is we had a program team that did Mustang, we had a program team that did Escape, a program team that did F-Series, and they would all develop their technologies. And something fabulous might show up on the Mustang, and the F-Series team might see it and say, boy, I would love that. And then they would go develop it, and it would take forever. Well, what Pam and Lois did is they brought this process in where the technology was developed centrally, and they did the migration plan for all of the vehicles. And the vehicle lines were the customers of the technologies that had been developed. It allowed us to develop a technology once, to develop it amazingly well, and then to roll it out globally so we could get economies to scale. Because the #1 thing that the Ford brand stands for is democratizing technology, of bringing technology that people want and love but can't afford to everybody. We have a Ford Focus that parks itself. We have a Ford Escape that has a foot-activated liftgate that I'll show you in a moment. And it's all because Pam and Lois developed this technology process that allowed us to do it better and faster and globally with economies of scale. And to do it once instead of doing it 20 times for 20 different nameplates. It sounds simple, but it's not simple when you have a company at the time that has almost 300,000 employees and sells 90 nameplates around the globe. So let's talk about a couple of these technologies, and I have a couple videos to show you. Easy Fuel. Easy Fuel is probably the simplest thing that you could ever think of, but nobody had thought of it. When you are getting gas, what do? You get out of your car and you open the gas cap and you dread unscrewing the cap and finding a place to put it and getting gas all over and breaking your fingernails. It's a pain in the butt. So every year we develop all these new technologies and we take them out to research. And one year, I don't know, 5, 6 years ago, Easy Fuel was one. And Easy Fuel is a capless fueling system. So you no longer have the cap. You no longer have something to lose. You no longer have to touch it. You no longer have to get gas on your hand. Very simple, right? But very technologically advanced because you can't siphon it. It has to be environmentally friendly, etc. So we went out, we had all these amazing technologies. There were 34 of them. And guess which one won? Easy Fuel. And guess why it won? And women loved it. And they came back and they said, guys, look what won. We're shocked. And I said, I'm not shocked. Let's just do it. So we decided to make it brand signature content. It's on every single Ford. Let's just run the video real quick so you can see how it works. Super simple, right? Super simple. For women, by women. The next one is intelligent access with push-button start. And another one of my really good friends, her name's Kristen Hellman. She's an engineer at Ford. She also writes music. She loves to write music. She works part-time. She runs our innovation at Ford. And every time we start a new program, we're working on 2018 model year programs now, whenever we have a major program, she does an innovation clinic. She's a facilitator. And what we do is we bring in all the different people from all the different areas, whether it be purchasing or public affairs or engineering or marketing, and we all get together and we spend 2 to 3 days innovating on the product, just thinking, what would the customer want? Who is our customer? How do they use the vehicle? What could they possibly want that they don't even know that they want? What are their problems? What are their issues? How do we solve them? And we do it globally. We'll do one in the US, then we'll do one in China, then we'll do one in Brazil, then we'll do one in Europe. And then we'll bring it all together and we'll come up with the best 10 to 15 ideas, and we'll go out and we'll do research. Kristen manages all of that for the company. She manages it globally. We used to have a consultant do it. It's gotten much better since she's taken it over. A lot of the features that you're seeing here have come out of that innovation. Now, intelligent access with push button start. Many people think it's simply push your button and the car goes, but it's so much more than that. And it's so much more than that for a woman. You walk up to your car and you never have to take your keys out of your purse, ever. Your keys are in your purse. If you're a man, maybe they're in your pocket. You walk up to your door. You get within 3 feet of the door unlocks for you. You open the door, you sit down, you press the button, the car turns on. I can't tell you the last time I looked for my keys. I know they're in my purse somewhere. But I know it would probably take me a minute to 2 to find them. But I never have to do that. So that's a minute or 2 that I get back on my life every time I get in and out of my car. It sounds simple. It sounds ridiculous. But making your life easier is what our job is at Ford Motor Company. This video is a little bit longer. It's 1:40, but it'll show you some of the technologies that go into intelligent access.
Did you know that you can unlock your car and start it without using a key? In fact, with your key fob in your purse or pocket, you can unlock the doors, start the ignition, and lock all of your doors. I'll show you how. To unlock your doors, just grab a front door handle, pull, and you're in. To lock your doors, press just the sensor on the driver's door handle for about half a second. It'll look like a square, like this. Or have ridges, here. When you hear them click, you'll know they're locked. Still with me? Great. Now, once you're inside, starting your car is simple too. Just press and hold the brake pedal while you push the engine start-stop button and your car will start. To turn it off, just press the brake pedal, shift into park, and push the start-stop button again. Okay, so how do you get into your car or start it if your key fob isn't working or the battery dies? Good question. If the battery in your remote dies or the signal is interrupted, you can use the removable key inside to unlock the driver's door. Just press or slide the button on the back to get it out. Once you're in, there's a pocket in the center console or a slot in the steering column made just for the key fob. It'll let you start your car. Keep in mind, because the key is programmed to your car, if you lose it, you'll need to contact your dealer for a replacement. Oh, and here's something else you should know. You can also open your trunk or liftgate without using the key by pressing the soft button switch located either just above or just below the license plate or in the liftgate handle. Any questions? Go to FordOwner.com.
The last feature that I want to talk about today, and there's so many I could talk about, is foot-activated liftgate. So imagine you have your baby in your arms, you have your groceries in your arms, you have your purse in your arms, you have your briefcase in your arms are always, always full. But your feet are always free, right? So on the new Escape and on the new C-Max and the C-Max Hybrid and the C-Max Plug-in Hybrid, we have a feature that's called foot-activated liftgate. And you literally, if the fob is in your purse or on your person, you come up behind the vehicle, you just kick your foot under it, and it opens up. Let's look at the video.
If your vehicle has intelligent access, you may be able to open and close your liftgate without using your hands or pressing any buttons. Let me show you how. To open your liftgate, just kick your leg forward and back under the center of the rear bumper below the license plate. Then step back to give the gate space to open. If for some reason the liftgate doesn't open, you can use the remote or button on the liftgate. To close it, just kick your leg under the bumper again, or simply push the liftgate open-close button. Any questions? Go to FordOwner.com.
So we had a little bit of a problem with the technology because when you designed it with trailer tow, it broke. You needed radar when you kicked your foot, and when you had the trailer tow hitch on it, we couldn't offer the foot activated liftgate with trailer tow. And we didn't have an engineering solution for it. Well, customers said, hey, you've got to fix that because I tow my jet skis, I tow my Sea-Doos, and I like this feature, so we really need it. So we challenged the engineering team, and they found a way to do it. So now we have the solution where you actually can get the foot-activated liftgate, and you can also tow things. So again, customers don't like to compromise. They want the and solution, not the or solution. So we continuously work to improve that. Now, power of choice. Power of choice is all about treading lighter on the environment. When I started at Ford Motor Company, it was called a Ford College graduate, and we rotated into 8 different jobs, 3 months a job. You could try things, you could see what you liked, see what you didn't like. It was a great way to enter into the company. And I had the opportunity to work for Bill Ford Jr. at the time. And I worked with a team called the Recycling Action Team. It was called the RAT Patrol. And my job was to make the seat covers that we used our assembly plants to cover the seats when you would ship a car to make them recyclable. So that was my first assignment at Ford. And what it led me to believe and to understand is environmental and sustainability is core at Ford Motor Company. And it's all because of Bill Ford Jr. We have 4 pillars when we design every vehicle. They're quality, green, safe, and smart. Quality because you must have the best quality. Green because it is our job to give back and to tread lighter on the environment. Safe because you must be safe when you're in your car, and you must be safest when you drive a Ford. And smart because we've moved from not only a car company, but also to a technology company. Those are the 4 pillars when we design every single vehicle. And power of choice is all about green and smart. And our technologies go all the way from a plug-in hybrid, which we had that you could drive. We had a C-Max plug-in hybrid, and it has the ability to run on all electric for about 20-ish miles per charge, and then it also turns into a hybrid, so you can get 500 to 600 miles, so there's no range anxiety. So once you run out of total charge on your electric battery, it just acts like a hybrid. You can plug it into your 110 at home. Takes about 6-7 hours in a 110. It takes about half the time in a 220 to fully charge. That's our energy. We have 2 vehicles that are energies. We have a C-Max energy, we have a Fusion energy. Then we have our hybrids. We have a Fusion hybrid and a C-Max hybrid. And then we have our EcoBoost technology, which is a downsized engine to get better fuel economy, boosted with a turbocharger to get better performance. That's all run by a woman. Her name's Nancy Joya. She runs our entire electrification group. So I think you're starting to see the trend here. Women are building vehicles for women. We understand women, not perfectly, but we certainly try, and we think about it every day. Now to finish, I just want to quickly give you 10 items that have worked for me in my career. And I'm not standing up here thinking that I know more than any of you do, because I certainly don't. But I will tell you I've had some successes, and some of them are because of these 10 things that I've learned, and I really try to live by them. Number 1 is the best product wins. You cannot fool a customer. You cannot cost reduce your way to profitability. You cannot choose cheap material and hope people will not notice. The best product wins. And the reason that the domestic auto companies almost went out of business was because we forgot that, right? Ford is now developing products that I am so proud to share with my family, with my friends. I will put them up against any other product out there. And I feel great. I feel great about the quality of our leather, the quality of our technology, the quality of our overall product. This is a personal one. Reputation, it takes forever to build and 1 second to ruin. You have no better friend in your business than your reputation. Guard it. Guard it more than you guard anything. The last thing you want is people talking that you got the job because you were a woman and weren't qualified for the job. Or the last thing that you want is people talking about your personal life and your personal choices in the office. You want them talking about your work. You want them talking about your professionalism. Be kind. There is nothing more important in business than being kind and treating people with respect and treating people the way that you want to be treated. When I look for people to bring into my team, managers, analysts, I look at how they treat others. I look at how they treat our suppliers. I look at how they treat the people above them, the people next to them, and the people that work for them. Be patient. Your career is a marathon. Your career is not a sprint. Nobody remembers who finishes the first mile first. Nobody remembers who finishes the 25th mile first. It's a marathon. Be patient with yourself. Take it easy on yourself. And remember, it's never as good as you think, and it never is as bad as you think. It's somewhere in the middle. Push versus pull. I started my career and I was very pushy. And this goes back to Chatty, Charming, and Cheerful. A lot of my team knew about that counseling that I had received at the time. I'm very open. And when I left and moved on to a new position, we do a brand bullseye for people as a going away present, and they had done one for me. And the center of my bullseye said Chatty, Charming, and Cheerful with an asterisk, and the asterisk went down to in lieu of brass, bold, and bitchy. And they meant it out of love. But I keep that bullseye. It's 15 years old. I keep it in my office. So I always remember, take a step back, ask a question. Ask a question. What I could have done that day, instead of saying, you can't do that, I could have said, boy, do you think we're going to be able to deliver the revenue and the volume that we've signed up to if we're not a leader in fuel economy? It would have been a much different conversation. I would have gotten my point across very clearly. I would have had respect in the room, and I wouldn't have made the vice president of product development so angry. Consciously manage your transition from an employee or a doer to a manager. This is probably one of the hardest times in your career or in the career of people who work for you when they're moving from doing to managing. Oftentimes, it's the best doers that get the nod to be a manager. And oftentimes, the best doers are not the best managers. As you move into that position, or as your people move into that position, help them. Constantly teach them that delegation is something that's hard to learn. They need to trust their people. They need to take the time to teach as opposed to do. It would be much easier for me to do a lot of things. But that's not my job anymore. My job isn't to do, my job is to teach. My job is to teach, my job is to support. My job is to develop. My job is to not think about my career as much and to think about the career of the people who work for me. It's almost like transitioning from being single to being married with kids. Right? When you're single, you're thinking about what am I going to have for dinner tonight? When you're married with children, you're thinking about what am I going to cook for my family tonight? It's just a different mindset. And that needs to also be your mindset when you go and you move into management and higher levels of management. Less about yourself, more about your people. And what will happen is you will find people are dying to work for you. They want to be a part of your team because people talk and people know. Keep your door open. Never turn people away. If somebody requests a one-on-one with you, take that one-on-one. Prioritize that one-on-one. I live by a rule called the 1-year rule. My kids are older now, but it worked for me when my kids were younger. I would look at the 2 things that I had to do at the same time, or maybe the 3 things, and I would say, a year from now, which one will matter? Will it matter that I went to my son's Halloween party? Will he remember that I didn't go? Yeah. Will such and such remember I wasn't at a meeting a year from now? No. If somebody takes the time to ask you for a one-on-one and you turn them down, a year from now, they'll always remember that. Do a job you love. When I transitioned and stopped doing what everybody told me to do and started doing what I loved, that's when my career really took off. And I think it's because I really started doing a much better job. My career turned from a push to a pull. I no longer had to ask for things. Things were coming my way. And they were coming my way because I was doing a good job. And I always tell people, if you have a job you love, if the promotions don't come, that's okay. You still have a job you love. Have a passion outside of work. I know at Ford Motor Company at some point, they're going to look at me and say, thank you very much, but it's time for you to leave. I might be a vice president, I might be the CEO, I might be where I am today. But at some point, they're going to say, it's time for you to move on and it's time for the next generation to come in. And I'm going to be able to look at myself in the mirror and say, I gave them, I worked so hard, but I didn't give them everything. I had a great family, I have great passions. My passion is yoga. Yoga helps me in business. It helps me in business, it keeps me calm. And I know, people say, oh, yoga, but it really helps you in business. It helps you manage how you handle difficult situations. It gives you a sense of calmness, which is so important when you're a manager. Have a passion outside of work. I don't know what your passion is, but it's very, very important to find that. It makes you well-rounded, it makes you more interesting, and it makes you better at work. And most importantly, or maybe least importantly, every once in a while when you want to get really aggressive and just throw it out in a meeting, take a step back. And maybe think of asking a question instead of giving the answer. Maybe think of quietly getting people to where you want them to go without shoving it down their throat. Maybe think about being a little more cheerful, a little more charming, and a little more chatty. And with that, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for having Ford Motor Company here. We are so happy to be a part of WITI. Thank you so much, and I would be happy to answer any questions or take any comments that you may have. Yeah.
I have a 15-year-old car everybody at work knows about. And she's turning 2. I call her the old lady, and 2 means 222 miles on this trip. I'm up in Roseville. So I want to understand, I've been searching for a new car. And
hope I don't mess
every
this one
time,
up.
no, I want to have a conversation with you because 15 years ago, there was like almost no recalls in the news. And every time I go, ooh, maybe this one.
Yeah.
Then I check, oh God, they just had a recall.
Yeah.
Now what? And I'm trying to think about it because it may be a good thing that now people are, and that's what I want to hear from you because you're really into the background of what this means to consumers. Because we have such wonderful features now. But I'm a simple woman, and I really like to drive. I'm from Los Angeles. Anyone from Los Angeles? Because anyone from LA, I actually watch Motor Week and I understand it. I don't miss it. Sunday morning, 8 o'clock in the morning.
Nice.
So that's what I'd like to hear from you. Tell me about recalls in the industry.
Yeah. Well, recalls in the industry are on the rise. They absolutely are. One of the reasons they are is we have more technologies in our cars than we ever have. But most importantly, if we find something wrong, we want to fix it immediately, right? We do not want something to go wrong in your car when you're driving your car. If we know that there's a problem, and sometimes we don't find the problem until we launch a vehicle, and it's out on the road, and it's got all of this new technology, and we find, so-and-so was driving in this climate, and we try to test for every situation. We're in Bemidji, we're in Death Valley, we're all over the place to make sure that our vehicles are doing exactly what they should do. But every once in a while, they don't. And the most important thing is we call you and we get your car back and we fix it right. And whether that's Toyota or Honda or Hyundai or Ford Motor Company, there's nothing more important than providing a perfect car to the customer. But it doesn't always happen that way. As technical people, as engineers, you know there are failure modes. But fixing those failure modes are what's so important. And I think why you're seeing more recalls is because of the technologies, but also because of the transparencies, right? The transparencies that the auto companies have today is, you know, we want to make it right. We want to make it right for our customers. So, yeah. Yeah.
I have a question. So when you were talking about these fabulous features that you've incorporated in your car design, thank you. What I was sort of what I am interested in, another woman in the car market will share resources. And of course, Ford has never been more appealing after your description, but how have you customized, since you're targeting women, how have you customized the inside of the car? One of my problems is I drive an SUV because I also like being up high, and I'm concerned about safety in smaller cars. So could you address those issues?
Sure. Yeah, my daughter, Chloe, who now has dreadlocks, I'm not bitter about that. We had her in a Ford Fiesta, and God love Chloe. She was driving, she was up at Michigan State for a weekend, and she was driving on a 3-lane road that was a one-way, and she was in the middle lane, and all of a sudden she realized, I need gas. She goes to turn in from the middle lane, and she gets smashed at 45 miles an hour. Luckily, she was also driving, so it wasn't, the crash was not full 45 miles an hour, and totaled her car. She was driving a Ford Fiesta, hit her on her side. She walked away. Car was totaled, Chloe was awesome. Nothing more important than safety. And SUVs are larger, they have more mass, they have more weight, but our small cars also are very safe because of the technologies in the cars. I will put my kids in any car that we make. Right now, they're all driving Escapes.
What about sitting up high?
Now, sitting up high is something that we find women really like. And when we do research, they say we like to sit up high because we feel more powerful. We feel more in control. And we're often shorter. And I think that's one of the reasons why you see a lot of women buying small utility, medium utilities, because they like sitting up higher. That's something our C-Max does as well, our C-Max Energy. It's not a full-on SUV, but you actually do sit higher in the vehicle so you can see better. So I do think that's something that women like. But I think you should feel confident in the safety. The governmental requirements on safety now are so significant that I think you should feel safe in most any vehicle that you drive. And it's really easy to check the safety ratings on the governmental websites. The research is very easy to do.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Hi, my name's Lynn. I drive a Prius during the week, but the car that I love and drive on the weekends is a Ford Expedition. Woohoo! I love Ford
You're
products.
balancing your carbon footprint.
That's right. I look good to all my friends, and then I drive 8-cylinder on the weekends, and nobody's like, so I'm excited to hear about the new technology and the new features, and I know that car companies have typically had this long pull, 3 years. I was wondering if you could speak about, since we're in this age of being anxious about immediate gratification, when you and how you see the technology turnaround from start to finish start to reduce its lead time in the automotive industry.
Yeah, it has. It is shortened, and it is shortened due to the technologies like the computer-aided technology that allows us to build a car all digitally. But there is no substitution for actually putting the car together. And yesterday, we had the opportunity to meet, we were at Tech Lab out in San Jose, and we met with a girls' robotics team. They were all high school students, and they won the Silicon Valley competition, and they actually went to nationals. Amazing girls. And I was telling them about the process we use. And instead of sketching, now most of our designers actually use computers. But the one thing we still do is we still do full clay vehicles. So we will design a complete vehicle out of clay. So we'll start by sketching, and then we'll put it digitally into a computer, and then we'll mill it onto a full clay. And when I say clay, I mean clay that you play with, right? We mill it onto a full clay. And then there are people, women and men, that actually finesse that clay and develop that clay into a beautiful exterior, still very much hand done. And after 100 years, we still use that process. Now, once the clay is complete, we actually do a process called die knock. I call it aluminum foiling, because we put this stuff, it looks like aluminum foil, over the car, and we wet it down, and it looks like a painted car. And you can actually see the painted car in 3D. You can look at it on a computer, but it's not the same as walking around it and touching it and feeling it and putting another car next to it. So we still do that. We have reduced the time. I don't think it's going to be significantly faster. There are things that take time. You need to do hot weather testing. You need to do cold weather testing. You only get a winter and the summer once a year, right? And you need to do it twice. You need to do it with prototypes, and then you need to do it with production level tools. So that for sure tells you at least have 2 years in your cycle. Then you have tooling times, you have powertrain development time. So 3 to 4 years I think is something that we're going to see for quite a while.
Hi, Amy. My name is Elaine. And first of all, thank you so much for your comments. And I have to say, you have really mastered Chatty, Charming, and Cheerful. It's
I work at it every day.
So thank you for that. I actually have a non-car question for you.
Great.
Which is, I infer from a lot of your comments that Ford is very supportive of women in the workplace. And I was particularly happy to hear your comments about your job share team.
Yeah.
Because I am half of a job share team, and we've been job sharing for 7 years, and we're in our 3rd job, and our 2nd company as a job share. And we love it, and we think it's the key to keeping a lot of women in the workplace. And I was wondering if you could comment on what you see Ford doing to really encourage women not only to be in the workplace, but stay in the workplace.
I think that's one of the hardest things, right? Recruiting women is difficult. Retaining women is very challenging for a couple reasons. Women will not put up with what men will. Men, and the statistics say that men will stay in a job that they're unhappy with. Women will not. If they are not happy, they will leave. So you bring them in, you must keep them happy, you must keep them growing. But most importantly, when they have different life stages, you have to support that. And one of the things that Ford does really well is we have a great job share program. We have so you can either job share, find a partner yourself, ask to find a partner, right? And Ford will match you up. Or you can do what's called TWA, where you work part-time. You work 50%, 60%, 70%, 80%. Some people work 4/10s, right? Because they just need one day to do all their grocery shopping and all the other things that they need to do. Ford's very supportive of that. Some of our most successful women are job share teams. The one team I was telling you about, Pam and Lois. Pam and Lois have been together for almost 20 years now. We hired into the company together, the 3 of us. And they've been job share partners for almost 20 years. Lois took a rotation over in Germany. And so they broke up. I say they broke up. They broke up for a couple years. And then all of a sudden they're back together again. And they're running, they work for Nancy Joya, and they're running, so they used to run our technology development team. Now they're running all the product planning for our electrification. So if you look at the electrification team at Ford, it's all these fabulous women, and they're job sharing, and they're doing what they need to do to make their lives work and to balance and to blend. And Ford knows that we need that. We have to do that. We have to be supportive of that. And we're also getting into now working from home, telecommuting, and really pushing it, pushing people to try it. We're like our vehicles are more technologically advanced, we're trying to make sure our company is also moving in that same direction. You know as well as I do, dual incomes are here to stay. It's very difficult to live on one income. So we have to find a way to not only support women as they have children, but also support dual income families. And it's very important to us.
Hi, I'm Karen. I'd be very interested in what Ford has to do with employee resource groups for women and other things they do.
Mm-hmm.
While you might be an enlightened manager, I'm sure that you still have some Neanderthal dinosaurs down in the trenches. and how you get through that and what you're doing, I'd be very interested in that.
One of my favorite stories to tell people is when I was an engineer, I worked for a guy. He literally had a bumper sticker on his computer that said, "I will rise to the top on the shattered bones of my subordinates." It's like, wow. I don't think this thing between you and I is going to work. Absolutely, at any company there is that. But having support and having people in senior positions that actually believe that it's important to be kind and be conscious and to find out what motivates people. We have many different support groups at Ford, from women in marketing to women in engineering to women in finance. We have groups that work together and bring them all together. We support Inforum, which is, in fact, Nancy Joya is president of Inforum, which is a big group in the Detroit area that just focuses on women in technology. So we have many different things that we do. It's not perfect. It never is. It never will be. But we certainly are making great strides. And I think, when you see our leadership team, you see women rising to the top in many different areas, whether it's in Europe, whether it's in China. My best friend just got back. She was vice president of marketing for Asia. So she had China, she had Australia, she had India. That was her scope, her job. Now, what ended up happening is she found that it really took too much out of her family. So now she's on sabbatical. So she's taking a 6-month sabbatical. Loved it, loved everything she did in Asia. One of the most senior women in Ford marketing, and decided to take a 6-month sabbatical. And Ford said, great, do what you need to do, and we can't wait to have you back.
Hi, I'm Cheryl, and I just had a question in regards to your chatty, charming, and cheerful. How would you say you made that transition? So what would be your #1 technique that, to move from that bold, brass, and bitchy over to that chatty, charming, and cheerful?
So when that experience happened to me, I wasn't really sure how to take it. I was a little offended, and I was a little confused, and I thought I was doing what I was supposed to be doing. And so I thought, well, who can I talk to? There weren't a lot of women, senior women at Ford at the time. So I called the only executive woman I knew, my aunt. She was very high up in county government in Western Michigan. And I called her and I said, I need your help. And I explained to her what happened, and she said, well, Amy, you cannot say that. I said, what do you mean I can't say that? She said, you cannot say that. You are a woman, you cannot say that. I said, well, what do you mean? You're a woman. She said, I know, and I can't say that either. She said, what you need to do is you need to manipulate the situation. And she said, I don't mean manipulation in a bad way. Manipulate the situation to get your point across, but in a way that isn't going to back someone into the corner. You backed him into a corner in front of 60 people in a conference room. You cannot do that. And she said to me, what if you ask the question? What if you ask the question and say? So what I try to do is, when I'm in a difficult situation, is think of a question that I can ask. Now, sometimes they're very leading questions. Sometimes they're questions that have an answer right in them. But I try to do that to make it a safer environment for everybody. And that's the #1 tool I use. And sometimes I forget, and I have to remind myself, and I think, boy, that meeting did not go well. You really need to chill out, Amy. But that's what I try to do. Anything else?
I had one question. When you talked about consciously managing your transition from an employee or individual contributor to a manager, can you kind of talk a little bit about what some of the pitfalls were, or the challenges you faced, and how you overcame them?
Yeah. For me, delegation was really hard, because you are only as strong as your weakest link. And you have to trust people. But if people let you down, how do you trust them? So one of the things that I do is, when I have a new team member, is I start them off with very small assignments. And then they grow and they grow and they grow into bigger and bigger assignments. It takes me a while to trust people, and I tell them that. When they come on my team, I tell them, this is one of my issues, right? We have to develop trust. And the way that we develop trust is by starting small and growing big. So delegation was a pitfall for me. What I tend to do is, when somebody fails, is I pull it back in and do it myself. And I can't do that. I need to take the time to teach, right? It takes longer, but it is so worth it in the end. So probably my biggest pitfall was delegation. And what I really try to do is take the time to teach, but I constantly think about that. All right. Carolyn, are we done?
Unless someone else has any other questions, there's one more.
One more?
Anyone at the microphone? Oh, I have. It's the only one.
Well, this is rather self-serving, but this is for my father, who's 83. So I was born into a Ford family. My dad is like king loyalty. His very first car was a 1930 Model A. My earliest memories were in the back of a Pinto listening to the Carpenters on an 8-track. We drove a country squire across the country. He was also a civil engineer, so we had to go check out all the new roads. And I can remember pre-seat belts, we'd all be sprawled out in the back. I drove a Mustang II, which no wonder you don't carry them anymore. They weren't very great. That was in high school,
right.
and I once got 13 kids crammed into it, and then moved on to a 66 convertible in college.
And
I wondered why I dated all the
beautiful-
cool boys.
Oh.
Yeah,
Should have kept
they
it.
liked my car. And then I now own a 66 convertible. It's my collector car, and my dad still drives a 1930 Model A. So thank you. Wow. We love you.
That made my day. Thank you so much. And thank you guys for taking the time, and have a great conference.